Hi, I'm Rigger. This is You Alright, and today I want to discuss something weird with Penny. There's a lot of those, but before we dive in, if you could, like this video if you like it, share it around if you think others would like it, let me know what you think in the comments, and subscribe if you want to see more. I'm sorry that there hasn't been as many videos this week. This video itself has been an ordeal to get made. I was meant to record this audio yesterday, but I hadn't had the script finished, and then I watched a double feature of some movies I meant to watch, and they were great, but heavy, and I felt awful afterwards and couldn't write scripts about magic girls afterwards because I couldn't get my head in the right space. And then today, everything has gone wrong. I just spilled a drink everywhere that I had to go clean up, and just everything is going wrong. But you know what? We're doing it now. Recording, script's done, but we're diving in. Let's go. Now, Penny is a weird character. There's no debate about it, but I specifically wanted to hone in on a strange thought that came to mind. Because Penny as it stands is in a weird position. You see, I, like many others, have earmarked Penny for death for a multitude of reasons. Ever since she was brought back, there has been an ever-present feeling that she was brought back simply to die again. I think that's a terrible idea. It won't have the impact of last time because we're all expecting it, but I digress. Even the explanation of how she works and what it would cost Pietro made it feel even more likely, because it feels like, no, seriously, if she dies this time, she's gone. Which of course makes you think that they're then going to do that. Then you have the overpowered problem. It's in a lot of stories where an extremely powerful ally will be killed, so things aren't so easy for our heroes. Both Penny and Pyrrha in Volume 3 had that feeling about them. Then, when they gave Penny Maiden Powers, it felt even more so. That she is crazy powerful without them, more so after her upgrade, and then she's certainly pretty OP when she gets the powers. That can't last long. Then you add in all the hacking stuff so far in Volume 8, from the intro to the events in Chapter 3. It's all looking pretty bad for Penny. You can't deny the feeling that she's gonna die. Especially with the Maiden Powers, since Cinder wants them, Salem needs them, and she has them. Not to mention having a Maiden on the good guy's side moving forward who would presumably grow to control her powers even more is that OP problem. You don't expect that they're gonna get that lucky, that things are gonna work out that well for them. It's quite literally too good to be true, from a storytelling perspective on the hero team. Now, let's talk about Penny herself. It's clear she doesn't want these powers, and it's fair enough. Her guilt and the pressure from the situation are clearly weighing heavily on her, and rightfully so. It is a thought I've had that if Penny survives the fall of Atlas, her powers and robotic nature could put her in a great position to stay behind and look after the survivors and try to rebuild somewhere livable for the people after Salem leaves, and that could be how she doesn't die, but we remove her from the story. She reclaims her Protector of Mantle role. She can't die in the cold, and her powers would help everyone. You could write her out using that responsibility that she feels she has to the people, and the team would probably agree. But I realize it's still a hard ask with the setup that we have to believe the survivors on the fall would be okay in the cold long enough to even survive and move back into whatever's left. But more than that, people like Cinder that would leave Penny and the powers behind? I don't think so, and I think that Salem, despite needing the powers just to get the relics, would want them on hand anyway. So it just seems unlikely. It could happen situationally, but I can't be the only one that feels like Penny having powers and marching around with all these death flags is a prime setup for another power transfer to someone else. Now, it's been speculated on for a long time that the girls will wind up with the Maiden Powers, and I believe it's been said no, that it won't happen by the crew, but never believe those things outright. And there's Winter, who was supposed to get them as well. If it is just a lie for the sake of storytelling, then we have the perfect domino setup if Winter were to get the powers. By which I mean you put all the powers in a position to fall to the main girls when they're needed, putting them on people around them or close to them so that they will fall into place as the story goes. If Raven dies, hers go to Yang. If Cinder dies, hers goes to RWBY. And if Winter dies, hers goes to Weiss. Then you just need, Ilya to get them in vacuo and then get shanked, and bam, Blake has her Maiden Powers. If you subscribe to the idea the team will get them, then Penny dying and handing them to Winter is actually the good setup, because it felt a bit messy if it was going to come from Penny, because Penny's would probably go to RWBY, then who do Cinders go to, because she should probably fight RWBY, so that makes sense, and then you still have Raven out there, and then who would give them to Blake, and who would give them to Weiss, they're not close enough, Penny and Weiss aren't close enough, those sort of things. It's not really important, it's just a theoretical, but if you were setting up for that, a good way to do it would be to get them onto Winter, because she is the domino for Weiss. This absolutely may not happen and may not be the plan, and my only point is never believe the creators outright no matter what they say, and whoever the powers go to is always a setup move for whatever the story will be, so transferring them off Penny, you just look at where they could go. And it sort of would trick your brain a bit, because, Winter was meant to get them, but she's like the red herring, she'll never get them. oh, she does actually have them, what are we going to do with this? It feels like a story in itself when it's actually set up for something else. You can do these things. The ultimate point of this tangent is not to pitch that I think that's going to happen, it's just that it feels more likely the powers won't stay with Penny forever, like that they will go somewhere else for the story. It just seems unlikely she will be the last holder of those powers in our story. Other ideas like Cinder getting her first double Maiden Powers is also another idea. Like, they just seems more likely that it won't end with Penny. There's a lot of ways to go with it, but that circles back to the idea of Penny dying. No matter what direction you think they might go with it, it just seems likely Penny won't hold the powers and therefore she has to die, right? And no one really wants that for a multitude of reasons. Whether it's that it just won't resonate as well, to maybe that it's too predictable and obvious, or Penny could do so much more moving forward as a character, or simply we just like Penny and don't want to lose her again. And this is where this weird loophole comes in. She can die and be brought back. Now, Pietro says he couldn't do it again. However, I always interpreted that to mean he'd be forced to, but it would cost his whole life and probably require another person to complete the process. But all that would require is a side character around to push the restart button once the transfer is done. He's presumably dead, and we have plenty of those. Maria, for the moment, is in the most likely position alongside him. Nevertheless, it puts Penny in this weird theoretical place that she could die, lose the Maiden Powers, yet recover without the powers and still be herself. Lately I've been thinking this is what is actually going to happen. Disregard Pietro saying he can't, because it feels like such a self-sacrifice setup, and Pietro dying seems pretty obvious. Never get too attached to anime characters with a cough either, but he's definitely a character we can lose. Don't get mad saying I'm disrespecting Pietro's statement that he can't do it. This is a classic, basic narrative setup for the impossible thing that isn't actually impossible, it's just that the stakes and cost are so high that the character will decide to go through with it out of love and make the sacrifice. It's really, really common, and it feels pretty certain to me this will happen one way or another, be it to repair an almost dead Penny or bring her back one last time completely. Could even see it as like, Pietro gets stabbed or something and is dying and chooses to pass his soul on to Penny before he ultimately would die anyway. Something like that, if Penny had been killed, quote unquote, previous to that. All these things seem relatively likely and, it fits the narrative, and we can shave off more of these side characters that don't have to tag along for the whole rest of the story and streamline the team moving forwards, sort of thing. And since we're covering it, by the way, I want to give my thoughts on the whole Penny Maiden thing and how it works, and it's this. Now, this is just theoretical like everyone else's, but I never gave what I thought happens or possibly how it could happen. Because if I were to guess how Penny works, why Penny isn't just a Pietro clone, it seems to me that Pietro siphons off part of his soul which detaches. He severs it, causing damage to himself. It then presumably is basically a sort of blank bit of energy, like a stem cell. It becomes whatever it needs to be. It's a piece of life force. It's not tied to Pietro, it's not tied to his consciousness anymore. It's a bit like a blank sheet of life, with only trace essences of him in there. You then bond it to a digital consciousness of Penny, that's memories and logs contain who she is. It's the equivalent of a brain in a person, it's just her digital core. The merging of the two, making this life, known as Penny, that is a young girl and has a soul that corresponds. It matches who she thinks she is and what her consciousness believes, which bonds to the life energy, informing it of what it is, so it changes to make it so. It is now Penny and Penny's soul. Or at least this is my guess at how that all works. There's a debate on it. Either way, no matter the reality of it, the truth of the narrative is Pietro slices off a bit of his soul, and that makes Penny. My suggestion simply covers a sort of scientific, in big air quotes, way it works, like that people can understand, and it covers why, she can be female and a young girl, and it's a bonding of technology and spiritualism that makes it so, and then when the powers are seeking out a new host, they are magic, they can account, it's not hard and fast rules, I don't think they're D&D magic, I think there's a bit of feeling in it, when they were given out, or however you interpret that story. And then they find that host. It qualifies. It is a little girl because its consciousness is a little girl and it's merged with a piece of life force that was basically blank, and they've combined to make it true, make it real in the world, therefore qualifying her as a real girl. And then you can add in there's bits of Freya in there and how those are passed down between maidens, all that kind of thing. Which means Penny can die, her soul ending, and the powers seek out a new host. Then Pietro could slice his soul again, probably at the cost of his own life, and restore Penny with the same memories, and so she's all the same, but the bit of soul is fresh, so she doesn't have the powers tied to them anymore. Allowing the show to move the powers to whoever needs them for the story, for it to be Winter, Cinder, Ruby, whoever, and still keep Penny as a character, because she dies quote unquote, but she's back and exactly the same, just minus the powers. It's such a strange technicality that the way Penny was made and brought back allows for. It's a strange realization I had. Interestingly, it appears she could be the only person this has ever been possible for. It's unclear, but implied Cinder's grim arm absorbing on Raven would have killed her. It's a weird one, as she outright kills Vanilla with a claw, but this is a draining later. But it also seems like it would have killed her given Raven's reaction of slowly weakening and slumping. Presumably it steals the soul? It's really unclear, because I was never sure if the grim parasite that we saw in Amber was inherently deadly, though the shot in the back definitely was. But I digress. It's technically an outside issue. These two instances, at least, for me, feel like they're implying it would kill the host by the end, the same way Amber's aura transfer would, meaning death in all cases. You couldn't just separate the powers from the soul completely. This whole removing the powers from Penny but actually bringing her back actually seems more and more likely to me, because then think of what we can do with the character of Penny. She doesn't want the powers and responsibility now, but it's possible through this method she can lose them but exist as a character. So then she as a character has to deal with that failure. She might not have wanted them, but now she's lost them, she's even less powerful to help everyone else. And either that responsibility has been moved onto someone she cares for, or has fallen into the hands of the enemy. If that makes Atlas fall, she could blame herself for all of that, and it'd mean her father is dead on top of it. This could cause her to stay behind and try and help, without wondering why no one is hunting her and we can remove Penny from the party, or she can join the party but not be as OP and have a whole lot of real issues to deal with. Also, it gives the writers a fun way to play with the audience. Penny dies and we say we all see it coming. Then Penny gets brought back and we say, well, some of us saw it coming. Then once she's back, she has so much to wrestle with all the fallout, and it's really something to watch. To not intentionally steal a line from the show, but it feels like they can have their cake and eat it too. Somewhat justify her maiden status, explain how she works, kill her and play on us all expecting it, bring her back and somewhat subvert the idea, but with all the consequences of what just happened on her character while reducing how strong she is for the story, and still move the maiden powers onto whoever they need to be on for the story moving forward. It just feels like they could go with this. It sort of covers everything. Anyway, food for thought. This idea came to me and has rattled around my head for a while now, and I thought I'd share it with you. If you like it, there's a button for that. If you think others would like it, then please share it around. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. But until next time, my name is Rigger. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I did alright.